this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about Joe Biden. They were talking about student loan debt relief, and they're going to go through with it, and they actually have a pretty terrible legal reasoning, not just legally, like I think it'll get struck down in the courts if they take it that far, but also it's like ethically it's messed up. It's messed up how they're doing it. So we're gonna be talking about that. Also, Ben Shapiro. So Ben Shapiro was, of course, talking about all this, and then people started looking at Ben Shapiro to see what kind of loans he's taken. So they're accusing him of criticizing the student loan relief while taking PPP loans, which is not the same. However, they just Googled Ben Shapiro, I guess, and looked up if Ben Shapiro got PPP loans, and they found the wrong Ben Shapiro. So you have people who've been trying to dunk on him, writing articles, and it's a common Jewish name, and they ran with it, didn't even contact the Daily Wire to see if the story was true. So we're going to be talking about that as well. Also, there was a couple who pled guilty to trafficking in stolen items, and one of those items is Ashley Biden's diary. And the story was originally that stuff was left behind and someone picked them up and I guess sold them off to like Project Veritas, and Project Veritas couldn't, and specifically the diary they took or whatever, and they couldn't verify it, so they didn't run with it. But then Project Veritas ended up getting raided. I'm just like, so is this diary real? Because it had some pretty shady stuff in it relating to the president. So we're going to be talking about that and perhaps some other things as well. We got to see where our time lands with talking about these different topics. But thank you for joining me today. I want to thank Brighter Michigan Pact. I am in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. No one cares. You're going to have to get one of those You're Not Special mugs and cry your tears and collect them in there. And yeah, it doesn't work like that. But I do appreciate the space and being able to be in the studio. Please make sure that you go to blacktnews.com, check out different content they have on the website, different articles, different videos. Make sure you're dropping in your email into the the newsletter. You can get email updates and stuff. We're on social media, of course, streaming different places, but hey, you never know when they might Andrew Tate you. And if you don't know who Andrew Tate is, he is a boxer, I think. I just now became familiar with him because he became like the most famous person on social media the past month or so. But he was like going at it with different feminists, particularly male feminists, and they couldn't take it, and they all worked together and with their powers combined, basically got him kicked off of every major social media platform, which, by the way, he's going to be on Tucker Carlson tonight, so that'll be interesting. And I'll probably talk more about it tomorrow after I hear what he says on, I guess, Tucker to gather some more thoughts about it. I've seen a couple clips of his. I don't obviously agree with everything that he says. My sister like watched more videos and followed him more closely than I did. But the sort of tomfoolery that people can do when they don't like you online is just crazy, absolutely insane. But anyway, make sure that you're following me on social media, all my and dropping your emails on the website. My social media handles are at Black Tea News, and it's Black like the color, tea like the drink. The only one that's different is at True Black Tea. That was my Twitter, and also my backup TikTok account. If you go on the website, you guys can check out different merch like the goat hoodie, goat t-shirts. I do have those in different colors if you're interested in that. We got the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For. The I Voted for President Trump and all I got was historic peace deals, border security, energy independence. There's gas under $2, no new wars, a tax cut, and this lousy t-shirts you can pick up stuff like that. Also, we got, I already mentioned the You Are Not That Special. We got those in cute little mugs as well. Also got some pro-life stuff like the Roe and Casey aborted life wins, and the pro-choice men are sus. If anyone's like, what does sus mean? Suspect. They are suspect. That is what that means. I'm not going to an explanation every time I show the shirt. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But it's a good shirt. Also, please check out different books that I have written on. You can check me out on Amazon. I have 15 that I have published. Those are all my babies. Those of you who have been following me know that I am working on a book about abortion, and that will be out very soon. I'll be announcing pre-order very soon, so just stay up to date. But it's going along swimmingly, and you guys will really appreciate it. But all these books, except for one, are all fiction, and I have children's chapter books all the way to like new adult. If I had to describe all my work, summing it up, because there's a lot of different things that, I mean, there's mermaids and vampires and werewolves and just kids with imaginations and inhuman queens. There's a lot of different stuff all throughout that my work. But I guess I would say I'm only, well, I think I was mixing only and monly. I don't know what I was trying to say. Mainly focus on the struggle of humanity, I guess, crucifying one's flesh, doing the right thing for right's sake, even though you may feel differently on the matter personally. Those kind of internal struggles that we have to ultimately do the right thing. I got some stuff that's happier, got some stuff that's like, Christina, this is kind of dark. Yeah, I know, but life is sometimes dark. So you can check out some of my stuff. And also, if you like what I do here at Black Tea News, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. The cost to stream, the equipment that I use, software that I use, there's cost associated with everything. And I know we're in Biden inflation, and he's only making it worse. However, if you would like to support, I'd appreciate it. And you can do that at blacktnews.com. Okay, you guys know that I like to start with something funny. And there were two that there's one that I saw. I was scrolling through Right to Bear, the Grand Old Memes page on Twitter, because I usually will go there to see what kind of memes they have. And so the first one was like, oh, this is great, I'm going to use this one. And then I saw another one just that actually made me laugh out loud. There's sometimes you write LOL because you want people to interpret it as this is a funny thing. And then there's some things that actually make you laugh out loud. So I already shared this on my Facebook page. So maybe some of you know this when I'm about to but it's pretty funny. Uh, student loan forgiveness and inflation. So things are always not what they appear to be. And of course we have a problem with inflation, and the student loan forgiveness is not making it any better. The Inflation Act or whatever that they just passed has not much to do with inflation, that everyone knows after it got passed, even before the ink was dry, with the president's pen, the media and everyone's like, oh, this is such a great climate bill and all this other stuff. And it's like, bro, I thought you were supposed to be addressing the problem with inflation. Well, we all knew that they weren't really doing that, but if there's suckers out there who thought otherwise, you need to pay attention. Really need to pay attention. They'll name an act that's like the free ice cream act, and they'll pass it, and then they'll be like, oh, we were really killing puppies, why didn't you read the fine print? That's how the government works, unfortunately. They lied to you. As Ronald Reagan said, like, the worst words you could hear is, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. There's like not much sincerity there at all with this. with the spending and the certain bills that they pass. The less work that they do, the the better, the more they're untying people's hands and allowing us to like live our lives without their interference, without needing them. That's all for the betterment of all of us. But yeah, they're just gonna make things worse. But the other meme I was gonna show that has a bit more meat to it, though there's a lot of meat to this one, I guess you could say. But this one was the one at first I was going to show you. I don't know if you guys seen this meme before, where it's like equality versus equity. And so normally the meme is you see these three men and they're all different sizes, and then they would stack the crates on the side that says equity, to a way that they would all be able to watch it all appropriately. So the tall man, they would give his crate to like the smaller man or something, for example. But they took this and said reality, and the guy, getting his loans paid off by taxpayers, of the guy that paid his own student loans, and blue collar workers who does not even have a crate, they're just in the ground. And that is the reality of the student loan debt relief. And they're pretending otherwise, or I guess pretending is a strong word. They're just lying. They're just lying. They're well aware of who Biden's base is, and it's just a goodie to his base. And even like Nate Silver has been saying that if there's people out there naive, just like, oh no, this he's just doing this good thing for all people. Like, no, but it's not going to help all people. It's not going to help all people. There are people who already paid off their debts, who have their own families to worry about, to think about. And you're like, well, it's compassionate for these people. What about people who couldn't afford to go to college and are still working through their life and their debt, trying to take care of their families, and now you're having them pay for some kid who people like to joke lesbian dance theory, but there's other jobs that people take that are actually, I guess, useful in the world, or careers that are useful in the world, but that still doesn't mean that someone else who didn't go to college should have to pay off their debt. As a matter of fact, it's likely that if you did go to college with a career that can be, can apply actually in the real world, you're probably on a better trajectory to earn more money than the person that you're depending to pay off your debt. Joe Biden had a lot of things to say yesterday, but there was one clip circulating around when he mentioned Black people and Hispanic people, of course, because you got to mention the minorities to get your hearts a tugging.
Many of you had to leave school because the financial strain was much too high. About a third of the borrowers have debt but no degree, and worst of both worlds, debt and no degree. The burden is especially heavy on Black and Hispanic borrowers, who on average have less family wealth to pay for it. They don't own their homes to borrow against to be able to pay for college.
Yeah, so first of all, there are white people with debt and had no inheritance from their parents or whatnot, and are borrowers, and life still sucks for them. There's white people who didn't go to college and have money from that they inherited or whatever he's thinking to pay off those debts. There's plenty of people who are minorities who are well off, or who maybe they didn't have money that they inherited, but maybe their families are doing well because they just worked hard, whether they're fresh off the boat from somewhere and immigrated in, and just really really work hard so they could make some kind of business and put a life together for the kids. Well, there's life is way more complicated than black and white a lot of times. Especially if you start breaking down like origin of where people are from, but I will say there are plenty of Black and Hispanic people who are in debt, who did not go to college and don't appreciate having to pay off the debt of someone else who chose to take on the debt to go to college. That, by the way, folks like Biden, if I'm not mistaken, decided, helped to make sure that you couldn't just eliminate the debt in like a bankruptcy court like you can with other stuff. So why should they have to pay for those people? That's what's not making sense. There's plenty of people who couldn't go to college, couldn't finish college because of money. There's people who just never wanted to go, had no interest in going, just went right to the workforce, and they're they started their own business, they did the trade school stuff, or they just started working just normal career paths at maybe working at the mall or something and worked their way up, getting experience to take like manager positions and are running stores and doing pretty well. Has had nothing to do with your student debt, and now you're asking them to pick up the bill. It doesn't, it's not fair. I'm not gonna say it doesn't make sense, because you're paying people off that you want to vote for you. That's what it is. Now he said something else that was really crazy when they asked, is it fair? So let's go ahead and play this.
The president, is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses if they see why these guys give them all a tax breaks? Is that fair? What do you think?
So, in case you didn't quite hear that, they said, is it fair for the people who paid back their stuff or didn't go to college or whatever? And he said, is it fair that, what about these mega rich companies that get all these subsidies and stuff? And the question is, I have is why, if you think it's unfair that those people get subsidies, why do you give them subsidies? Is the answer just to be continuously be unfair to every single person? And it's not the same. I mean, hypothetically, like, I assume the reason why you give subsidies to these big businesses or whatever is because you expect that they're going to somehow pay it forward to the general public. Like, if you have a company and you want them to move into your state, a big company, maybe like Amazon or something, and you're like, hey, we want you to be in this state. We're going to give you some breaks if you come in our state, because we know you're going to supply a lot of good jobs in an area. So it's going to hire a lot of you're going to hire a lot of people who are within our state, and that's going to help local businesses, because there's going to be these shops that are going to be around that people will order from, like different diners or whatnot, when they're on their lunch breaks, etc. All that does really help boost an economy. So that's why a lot of people do the subsidies stuff. Sometimes people just do the subsidies stuff because their buddies own the business and they have a piece of the pie. I mean, look at, and they do say it's going to create jobs and all this other kind of stuff. But let's be for real. But they do that kind of stuff with like green energy, with tax breaks and all the other kind of stuff. So, and knowing that they just like passed a bill, that address like the green energy stuff, is there just no honesty in the brain at all? No honesty at all in the brain? If you think it's unfair to give subsidies or tax breaks, then don't give them. Don't give them. But don't be like, well, we do it for these rich guys, so we might as well do it for my voters. But what about the people who are getting screwed? When the government gets involved, they just pick winners and losers. And you can argue about whether it's profitable or it's the ends will justify the means or whatever. At the end of the day, you can debate that and decide what's best for everybody, I guess. But you can't just think that, address that situation as if it's so corrupt and wrong to justify what you're doing, and then continue doing that same business. But that's what they'll do, though. That's what they'll do. But it's not fair to a lot of different people who didn't finish college or didn't want to go to college or couldn't go to college to pay off all these debts, or people who did pay off their debts. Do you guys remember this on the campaign trail when Elizabeth Warren was addressed by a father who paid off his debt?
It's not how we're doing it in New York anymore.
That's the wrong video.
Hello here.
I just want to ask one question. My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us who did the right thing get screwed.
No, it's not anybody got screwed. When we
Of
started
course we did. My buddy had fun, bought a car, went on vacations. I saved my money. He made more than I did. But I worked a double shift, worked extra. My daughter works, she was 10. So you're laughing at her. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. We did the right thing, and we get screwed.
I appreciate
That's
it.
all right.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. He is absolutely not wrong. And it's not just people on the right who are complaining about this, but a top Democrat economist blasted Biden's student loan bailout. He says it's pouring gasoline on the inflationary fire. And this is someone who worked for Obama. So this is from the Daily Wire. Top economist who worked for the former President Barack Obama slammed President Joe Biden for his plan to bail out a large number of Americans from having to pay back a substantial portion of their student loans or Pell Grants. Biden announced his plan on Wednesday to make the U.S. taxpayers pay off thousands of dollars in student loans and Pell Grant recipients for those making less than $125,000 a year. $125,000 a year. And we're not talking about just. And then maybe it would be different too if it was like focused on like people who are making less than 50,000 or something, you know, which a lot of people would consider that's a pretty decent pay. I mean, with inflation, it's hard. It depends what your expenses are, and how many people you got to take care of. But it's 125,000, and I guess they can go quick depending on where you live and what kind of lifestyle you have acquired. But it's 125,000. The nixing of 10,000 of debt per borrower would cost 298 billion in 2022 and a total of 329 billion by 2031. If the policy is renewed each year, according to a nonpartisan analysis from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, less than 32% of the funding would benefit Americans in the two lowest income brackets, while 42% of benefits of those earning more than $82,400 per year. Jason Furman, President Barack Obama's chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, responded to the plan by writing on social media, pouring roughly $500 billion of gasoline on an inflationary fire that is already burning is reckless. Doing it while going well beyond the campaign promise of 10,000 K of student loan relief and breaking another all proposals paid for is even worse, he continued. There are a number of other highly problematic impacts, including encouraging higher tuition in the future, encouraging more borrowing, creating expectations of future debt forgiveness, and more. Yeah, so if people do expect that their debt can be forgiven, people will just go out and maybe acquire more. You have the incentive from schools to continue to raise their prices. That's another thing. Like, you're not really addressing the high prices while you're just getting rid of the debt. It's just creating a lot of problems. And it just goes on. Most importantly, everyone else will pay for this, either in the form of higher inflation or higher taxes or lower benefits in the future, he later added. Finally, it's not obvious to me that this is reasonable for a president to do unilaterally. You guys know what I'm trying to say. A number of lawyers and political leaders have argued inconsistent with the law. Even if technically legal, I don't like this amount of power. So another thing that he noted is that, so you can get like 10,000 if it's a Pell Grant, you can get like another 10,000. So up to, you could possibly get 20,000 per person. But if you're a married couple, again, the individual is like 125,000. But if you're a couple together and you're making like 249,000, so like that's so much money. I guess depending on who you are, where you are, and the sort of lifestyle you have acquired. But to a lot of people, a couple making that much money is doing pretty well. And that you can get up to like $40,000 canceled. And you're making like Joe the plumber pay for it? Or, you know, that doesn't sound very fair. that doesn't sound. I had a commenter who just said it's not chicken feed the 125K. Yeah, it's not chicken feed. Absolutely not. So yeah, again, this is an Obama economist who's pointing this out. Like it doesn't make sense. Um, he said the White House it has a fact sheet and sympathetic examples about a construction worker making 38K and a married nurse making 77,000 a year. But then why design a policy that would provide up to 40,000 to a married couple making $249,000? Why include law and business school students? And there was like a legal. I shared this like thing on Facebook. A legal teacher, law school teacher, was like, "Oh, some of my students will be so happy about this," and it's like, your students, yeah, they took out a lot of debt, and they should be able to pay it off. And this is like for like government loans, not even like private business loans as well. It's just really, really bad. And so Ben Shapiro has been. Oh, before I get on the Ben Shapiro story, let me also point out how they are justifying doing this legally. So this is from townhall.com. President Joe Biden caved to the radical leftists on Wednesday and decided to move ahead with forgiving billions of dollars in federal student loan debt at a cost of more than $300 billion to the American taxpayers, whether or not they attended college, had student loans, or had already paid back their loans, despite House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's April declaration that the president did not have such authority to do anything but postpone federal loan repayment. Biden plunged ahead in something of a fast-ditch attempt to motivate Democrat voters ahead of the midterms with some action from the Oval Office. As it turns out, the legal basis Biden is using for his plan comes after the General Counsel of the Department of Education determined that the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students HEROES Act of 2003 grants the Secretary authority that could be used to effectuate a program of targeted loan cancellation directed at addressing a financial harms of the COVID-19 pandemic. The HEROES Act is a 2003 law passed by Congress as part of America's response to the terrorist attacks of September 11th, 2001, in order to provide federal student loan payment relief for American service members fighting the global war on terror. So that's pretty messed up. So there were it's pretty messed up. I don't, but everyone was saying this wasn't legal. This one of the reasons why probably Biden was holding off on it. They found a loophole or whatever that they wanted to try to claim that it was legal. They can take this to the courts and probably get struck down. Not sure. It's probably also what they want too. Like, oh, I tried to act, but that radical, Republican court just struck me down again. It's probably what they want. They probably want to have that narrative. Oh, I tried to help you out, but those Republicans struck it down. They don't want you to have relief with your student loans. It's that attitude. I think when Garland originally in like 2016, whatever, when the Republicans wouldn't seat them, well, not seat him, but even like give him like the confirmation like hearings and stuff. Someone said, I don't remember who it was, but they said Obama should just seat him and dare the Republicans to do something. I'm like, that is crazy. I think Biden at this point is doing stuff he wants to do and is daring people to fight back. And if it doesn't work out for him, he tried and he can blame it on his opponents. Like, who cares if it's legal? They don't care if it's legal. They don't care if it's legal at all. And I shared a headline. Morning Joe had shared this out, retweeted this out, this article. I think it's from the Daily Beast. Said, when the deep state is gone, you'll miss it. I'm like, so they're just admitting the deep state is true? Okay. All right then. We all knew it, but okay. And they said the issue is that if Trump gets back in office and becomes president again, he's plans to he's saying he'll get rid of everybody. And frankly, Trump should have got rid of more people when he came in. Um, because there were so many people who were just so driven by their ideology. But the article went on to talk about how there are people who would like who would fight against Trump, who would have like pump the brakes on some of his worst impulses. And there were times when Trump was like doing something and people are like, sir, and push back on some stuff. There's some times when people tried to push back on him and he had the right instincts, you know. It's a give and take, but I think that's different than like people who are just like actively trying to thwart the will of like the president and when he is over the executive branch, like when you had like Millie reaching out to China and you know, like, well, we'll let you know if we're doing something. What? It's not your job, obviously. Definitely know what you're supposed to do. Definitely know what you're supposed to do. So they're saying it's a good thing to have like the deep state, and they talked about that one person who that girl, I can't think of her name off the top of my head, who Hutchins, I think, who claimed that Trump grabbed the limo of the Secret Service so he could drive back to the Capitol and whatever, and fought the Secret Service members, which people are saying that didn't happen, and she testified like she wasn't there. That was something that she had heard. So they're saying people like that were like heroic deep state, and we need people like that in the deep state fighting people like Trump. And if Trump gets in, he's just going to replace all these people with loyalists. Now, Trump does like some loyal folks, so I think you need good people in there who, well, he knows how to. At that point in time when he first came in, he didn't know how to govern. He didn't have that sort of experience. He's bringing that business experience, executive sort of experience. And there were people who he needed to have advise him around. But the article talked about like different people that they thought weren't qualified. They talked about Richard Grenell. I'm just like, he did a pretty good job. What are you talking about? So I'm just like reading the article, and it was just obviously biased in the stuff that they were saying, and I have a bias too, you know. But when you have people, they claim the deep state is good, that the system is good, and they're mad that Trump comes to disrupt it. But then you have people like Biden that's like, yeah, I know it's illegal, but I'm going to do it because I want to. And Obama did stuff that he was sued all the time. Obama was sued all the time. He did stuff that he wasn't supposed to do all the time. But they push it because of the political blowback. They think it will be beneficial to them. So, like I said, if they take it to the courts and Biden just be like, well, that's that tyrannical conservative court. We need to pack the courts. We need to get rid of the filibuster. We need to do X, Y, and Z. Go to the polls and vote for me so I can really do what you want me to do. That's how it works. Obama knew he was lying to people when he was pushing Obamacare. He knew it, lying through his teeth about you can keep your doctor, blah blah blah. But they knew if they could ram that through, get that through, people were never really going to get rid of it because it's very hard to get rid of entitlements. So they push what they can through. And Obama had ideological people who worked under him, and you had conservatives targeted by the IRS and all this other stuff. The deep state was bad and unfair. And there's a lot of people who sway a particular way, you know. So they like it because it's their buddies, their pals. There are people on the right who will be level and civil and fair. They don't want those kind of people in the government. And the only good kind of Republican is one that's going to throw the Republicans they don't like under the bus. It doesn't matter if they're right or wrong. They just don't want Republicans in power. That's how it is. But you can't say that you don't want that you want government to function normally and just be okay when we start corrupting the whole system for a particular side. This isn't cool what Biden is doing. And Nancy Pelosi, who was saying it wasn't legal before, now it's a good thing. I thought it was illegal before. They also said that they couldn't do forced vaccinations or coercing people into the way that they did, but then they found a way that they wanted to do it. It got struck down eventually, but not without a lot of heartache and headache and forcing people to comply. And then the way that they were twisting people's arms, it made businesses want to force people to twist people's arms too. So that sort of pressure from the government put pressure on the private sector, and they put the pressure on their employees. And then they brag like, "Oh my gosh, the airlines, they have like 99% compliance, whatever it was." It's like, yeah, because you fired people or scared people and let them know they wouldn't have jobs. You're not good people. You're not good people when you do crap like that. Before I go to the Ben Shapiro story, let me play this Kathy Hochul thing to just drive in a little more narrative about the deep state. Because she says she wants to look on social media to see people how they are before they're hired, which I agree about what they put on their social media and stuff. But are you going to be like? It looks like it's going to be deeper than that.
That's not how we're doing it in New York anymore. We also talked about, I mentioned social media a number of times. I've called upon and working closely with our Attorney General to identify what's going on in social media. Those questions are now part of our background checks. Just like in the old days, you'd talk to someone's neighbor. Now you can talk to their neighbors online and find out whether or not this person has been spouting philosophies that indicate that they have been radicalized, and that's how we protect our citizens as well.
Radicalized how? Radicalized how? Because there's a lot of folks on the left who think a lot of people are radicalized. I started at the top of the hour talking about briefly mentioning Andrew Tate, and there's this one a guy who's this big lefty online who was just bragging about how he helped to get him kicked off like every social media platform. And they're like, this guy was in the was pro KKK and Nazis and all that, just stuff that wasn't true. But they lie, or they convince themselves that it's true, and then they lie to all their followers, their hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers about crap. It's insane. So if you put something on social media, like employers, you should definitely look at what people post on social media. But you're gonna, if you see a thread where they're arguing with someone, are you gonna DM someone like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring this person, what do you think of them? And they'll like, oh, they're a racist, sexist, Nazi, Trump supporter person, big lie, blah blah. Just would they go in some kind of crazy rant? Like, how deep does this go when you're trying to scrub out different ideologies? Like, you shouldn't hire crazy people who want to do harm. Like, not stuff like that. I agree with that, but I just know what people think about how easily people can assume that you're a radicalized person and feel that you shouldn't be able to participate in society. There's so many conversations about Christian nationalists that's just like utterly insane. And I don't have this clip prepared, but Stacey Abrams went into a church and was talking about how Christianity is mean, or the meanness of Christianity, or how people talk about like not having abortions is rooted in meanness or something. And she said in a church and there's people clapping, and it's like, this is awful. I'm like, where's your theology, ma'am? Where's your theology? Like, it's mean to convince people that they shouldn't kill their babies. Okay, Stacey. Okay. And the nerve that a church would just clap along with that. But Ali Stuckley pointed out, like, they always talk about these white evangelicals or these Republican white folks who are Christians and Christian nationalists. She's like, black churches are very political. And then all these people started arguing with Ali, and I'm like, Ali's not wrong. Ali's not wrong in the least bit. A couple of years ago, gosh, it's not even a couple. It's probably like 10 years, maybe. Gosh, we're all getting old, aren't we? Did you notice how I like coupled you guys in there? Because I'm obviously not getting old by myself. So we were at a church in Pontiac, and my dad is friends with this pastor. They've gotten into some very heated political debates, and my dad is a Republican, this guy's a Democrat. And so my dad was preaching, and he does a good job when he goes out and he preaches, and to folks he usually, does some good banger kind of services, and people enjoy him. And but when he got up, or the pastor, the host pastor, like announced him for whatever reason, he just decided to share some just small talk fact with the congregation. And he's like, yeah, he's a Republican, he's trying to convince me to whatever, blah blah blah. And you could just feel the church sort of deflate. And some of them, I don't remember how many members from our home church went, but when my dad goes out, he would usually have me and some of my older siblings come, and we would sing together. And it was, the service was just kind of hyped up and prepared at that moment to receive him. But at that point, after it was announced that he was Republican, you just felt like a cold chill, like someone opened up a door and the Arctic just froze everything over. That's what it was like. And so I had retweeted Allie, and I said, my dad could have shot anointing from his hands that would have looked like lightning bolts. And it could have, and it still wouldn't have saved that service. It was insane. Like, black people are very political in the church, and to just pretend like it's just the white Christians who vote, Republican are the danger and the nationalists. It's just, it's not fair, because black churches are obviously political. It's obviously political. When I was running for Congress briefly, it was like a month-long campaign due to special circumstances. I went to a church to pitch myself, and they loved me. They loved my testimony. They liked me personally. They liked my policies that I was pitching. But when they found out I was a Republican, it was like, I don't know about that. And these folks, they didn't like Brenda Lawrence, who ended up winning. Some of them had a real issue with her. Brenda Lawrence had to run like several times before she actually got that seat. And when she won the primary, she knew she was going to win. It's an 80-20 district. So I didn't have much of a chance. But there's reasons why you're running unwinnable races. I won't get into it today. I have before, but I won't repeat it today. But it was amazing just watching them just turn like, I don't know about that. And it's like, so you don't like the Democrat, but you're gonna vote for them because they're a Democrat. Okay, I guess I get that, but you like my policies though. So now I don't understand. I don't understand, because you like me, you agree with me, and you also like me personally. You also like my theology and spiritually, all that good stuff. But it's a hard no, right? Because I have an R next to my name. Yeah, black church. The reason why they won't go hard after these black churches, though, talking about their theology and them being like Christian nationalists, because at the end of the day, their ideology doesn't really intermingle with the politics. They think it does. Like, you'll go to church and they'll be like, it's not even their theology isn't rooted in their politics. Maybe they think it is, but it's not. It's just basically like hate Republicans. That's what it is. They might find a scripture or two, but it's not like when Warnock says, I'm a pro-choice pastor. Those two things don't correlate. They don't correlate in the least bit. But you're using your mantle as a pastor to somehow give validation to your political opinion, but there's no scriptural basis for this. So the thing that they like about black churches, who are obviously political and vote D, is that they don't allow the truth of the gospel to influence their vote, but they allow their mantle and their influence to influence the voters. So they're not a threat. So they go after these evangelicals who the more they go to church, the more likely they are to vote red. It's according to like Pew Research that we went over a couple weeks ago. So it's very fascinating. Very, very fascinating. Anyway, let's move on to this Ben Shapiro story. So he was talking about the PPP loans, about the student loans, and folks on the left decided to come at him. And they're like, hey, didn't you take PPP loans? Now, PPP loans aren't the same as student loan. The student loans, you decide that you were to take that out, that you would pay it back, that's what you promised, etc. The PPP loans, people, whatever arrangements they made, there are people who knew that they wouldn't have to pay it back and stuff. But anyway, the government shut down your businesses, said you cannot operate your business, and which means you can't make money, your staff can't make money, and all this other kind of stuff. So they were like, hey, we can at least pay you. But FYI, we should never shut down. We should never lock down, especially when they're going to do this kind of garbage like this, and people are going to use these sort of justifications. Just future reference. You should power through and never trust the government. Never trust the government at all, because it's what people keep comparing the student loans to PPP loans. It's not the same. And I think a lot of people would have just rather have worked, let their staff work, and pay for their families, because some people never got those loans at all. There are people who got them who did not need them, but they used them. It was a crazy time. Government picking winners and losers. It wasn't good. We shouldn't have locked down. I've said that many times. But anyway, Ben Shapiro, the thing about him using PPP loans didn't happen. Daily Wire didn't happen. But so Daily Wire ended up sending out a cease and desist letter to this group, this magazine or newspaper, Uproxx, and this writer who wrote the story, accusing Ben of having PPP loans and stuff. Because what they did was just look up Ben Shapiro, and he has a very common name. And the Ben Shapiro that they looked up and had the PPP loans was a real estate agent in LA. So not Ben Shapiro. Apparently nobody reached out to Daily Wire to see if this was the count or this was true. And also they looked up other conservative folks who got PPP loans, and I guess because Steven Crowder had gotten some, according to their research, or Daily Caller, they thought it was Daily Wire, but Daily Caller and Daily Wire are not the same. So he sent a cease and desist letter. People are talking about it. Some people are like, oh, what about free speech, Mr. First Amendment? And it's like, libel. You can't just be printing stuff that's not true. Like, you're welcome to your free speech. You're also welcome to the consequences when you print something untrue. So we'll see how that retraction and stuff goes. But kudos on them for having lawyers and actually doing stuff when people just maliciously lie like that. Or maybe it's not malicious, I guess, but obviously didn't do their due diligence with that. Or maybe they just wanted to hurt him. Or maybe they're dumb. I don't know. It's hard to tell these days. Really hard to tell. Last thing I want to mention, because I think this will be the last thing for time's sake. So do you guys recall when Project Veritas got raided by the FBI? And the reason why they got raided is because they were taking back Ashley Biden's diary. And I really think if they wanted some different sources and access to information that Project Veritas had, like their different sources in different places in their donors lists and stuff. So I think that's why they confiscated a lot of stuff. They used it as a grand opportunity, you know. If you don't know who Project Veritas is, they essentially, it looks like their business is that they get people to go undercover to different places and they hang out in bars with folks, and they just spill their guts. They just spill the tea of the corporate tea. They got stuff on CNN. They had stuff on Pfizer. They have stuff under politicians, and they just go in there. They start like, "Hey, want to go out? Let's go have a beer or something." And people just like love to spill the tea. I don't understand. Like, is this just like people being messy, or is this just people drinking? I don't drink, so I'm just like, I don't understand this life, but they're good at what they do. Is like their model. They have some pretty interesting stuff that they put out there. So anyway, someone had contacted Project Veritas and said that they had Ashley Biden's diary, and so they like ended up getting their hands on it, and they didn't run anything from it because they couldn't verify it enough to the sort of standard where they felt it was appropriate to put it out there, because there's some pretty heinous things in there, like alleging like inappropriate stuff with Biden. So they didn't put it out there. There's some people who have read it or looked at some of the contents that were in there, but most people haven't really touched it. Most people haven't really reported it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is real or whatever. And Project Veritas didn't know if it was real. But once they got rated because they had it, people are like, you're going through all of this trouble over a fake diary? Now, I'm not saying they wouldn't want to punish someone for allegedly having something like that, because they are just that petty that they want to crush people that they don't like, and they want to teach them a lesson. And again, I think they wanted access to certain information that Project Veritas had, like donor lists and contacts, etc., when they took a bunch of their files or whatnot. I think they took some phones and other stuff, if I'm not mistaken. It was a while ago that this happened. But there were 2 people who pled guilty. So there's people going to jail for having that. And originally the story was that it was left behind, and then they took that different stuff that they had, including the diary, and sent it to Project Veritas. So they tried to see that Project Veritas was involved in the theft and stuff at first, and that's was part of like the raid, but they didn't have anything to do with like stolen property. But a man and a woman plead guilty to stealing Ashley Biden's diary, selling it to Project Veritas. This is reported by Fox News. 2 Florida residents pleaded guilty in a federal court in New York City on Thursday to stealing the diary and other possessions of President Biden's daughter, Ashley, and selling them to the conservative group Project Veritas during the final weeks of the 2020 presidential election. Amy Harris and Robert Kurlander pleaded guilty Thursday before the U.S. Magistrate Judge Sarah Lee Cave to conspiracy to commit interstate transportation of stolen property involving the theft of personal belongings of an immediate family member of the then former government official who was a candidate for national political office. They will be sentenced by Chief U.S. District Judge Laura Taylor Swain. Harris and Kurlander stole personal property from an immediate family member of a candidate for national political office. Damian Williams, U.S. Attorney from Southern District of New York, said in a statement they sold the property to an organization in New York for $40,000 and even returned to take more of the victim's property when asked to do so. Harris and Kurlander sought to profit from their theft of another person's personal property, and they now stand convicted of a federal felony as a result. Ashley Biden had stored the property, including a handwritten journal containing highly personal entries, tax records, a digital storage card containing private family photographs, and a cell phone, among other things, in a private residence in Delray Beach, Florida, at which defendant Harris had been temporarily residing, according to court documents. If this is real, shouldn't we talk about what was in it? Like, was it real? I mean, there's other stuff I guess that they took or tried to go back and take, and again, was it left behind? Was it not left behind? You could say that's crazy. They left it behind. Apparently, people leave stuff behind, and we know about Hunter's laptop, right? But is it real? Is it real? If the diary is real, there are some weird things in it. I don't think everybody should ignore, but the more that story got spread around, and the more serious he got with like legal accusations, I think people start questioning, because it's something that is like, what are the odds that you find a diary and it has something like that on Joe Biden? What are the odds? Like, most people probably like, that doesn't sound like it's legit. And then you have all these people, law enforcement, going after a diary. Would they be going after a fake diary in such a way? Punishing people for a fake diary in such a way? Maybe they would. It just seems weird. This Twitter user Bunchy point out, let me get this straight. The DOJ went after and pressured two guys into guilty pleas for trafficking in stolen goods because they picked up Ashley Biden's abandoned diary. And no one is even bothering to talk about the fact that the diary accuses Biden of molestation. Even this article doesn't mention, this is a Fox News article, so I know maybe they want to be really careful about what's in it accused, but no one's going to talk about what's in it. Seems weird to me, guys. Very, very strange, but maybe we'll see that as a conversation that moves on further. By the way, a lot of people have been talking about debt relief, but and how illegal and terrible it is that Biden is doing that. However, they're like in the middle of doing some bad deals with Iran, so we should just remember that. You go into more detail later, but I just wanted to drop that in your brain before I left you today. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content that we have on the website, different articles, different videos, etc. Make sure that you guys are dropping in your emails on the email list. Check out different merchandise that we have, like the Denounce White Supremacy, Defeat Joe Biden t-shirt. Oh, let me go back to that and just point out there is a list of some of his racist atrocities on the back. Also, the Be Better Not Bitter shirt. Love that shirt. Also, we got a bunch of, pro-life stuff that you guys can check out. We got the pumpkin spice season just coming up, so you might want to get one of those cute little mugs. I drew the little Trump chibi myself, so check that out. Also, I'll let you know as my new book comes out, when you guys can get that for pre-order. In the meantime, you can go check out the different books that I have for sale already. Like I said, I've got a lot. Slay Your Fear, the very one at the top, that is my only nonfiction one. It's about overcoming a spirit of fear. I started writing that in the pandemic, and I just wish people had listened. They did not listen, but you guys can check that out on Amazon. Otherwise, I got a lot of great books you guys can check out, like Super Kid, if you got some kids in your life or grandkids, whatever. It's got a lot of great values in there, wholesome values that you can share with your kids, and good book to read with them as well. It is a very enjoyable book. Would love to see it as a film one day. So check out all that stuff out. If you go to Black Teen News and you hit the merchandise button banner, you go to that page, there's a banner with all my books on it. It can take you to my book website, or you can just search me, Christina Elbar, on Amazon, and you shall find me that way. Also, if you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. I appreciate everyone who watches, everyone who gives here and there, everyone who likes, subscribes, shares, comments. It all does really help, and I do appreciate you guys. God bless you guys, and I'll see you